morning. This video is to basically tell you about your first essay assignment, which is going to be the ethnographic essay. I'm just going to switch over here to the course page, and I'm going to show you where it is, where the guidelines are. I did just post those. So get a copy, print them out if you want to. I'm not going to go through every detail of these, but I just want to make sure that you hear from me what this type of assignment is going to look like. The ethnographic essay is basically you writing an essay about a particular culture. You're going to do research that's beyond what you're typically used to. Usually you do research in the library, but for the ethnographic essay, you're going to be doing 5 types of research, which includes going to the library, field observations, doing interviews, looking on the internet for photography, video, or audio, and collecting artifacts. So it's definitely more of an active essay, physically active. You have to be out there in the field, and essentially you're trying to study a particular culture. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in the PowerPoint that I go through in just a minute. But here I give you some ideas about how to develop your topic. I would strongly recommend thinking about this sooner rather than later. I have a due date of, I think it's the 4th of September, so not next week, but the week after, that you have to actually select your topic by then. But you want to try to figure it out pretty quickly so that you can start planning ahead to do these different types of research that you need to do. So look this over. It gives you some ideas. The idea of this whole project, I just want to read this part, is that you're going to be developing an essay by stating an initial theory, argument, or observation. So you do have to have a central idea to this essay. Doesn't necessarily have to be a strong argument. It could be just simply, like I said, an observation about a particular culture. And look on page 357 in your Curious Writer book, because there's a lot of websites listed where you can also find some very good topic ideas. Okay, I'm just going to tell you briefly about the types of research you're going to do, and I will hand out separately assignments for each of those types of research, so you'll get more detail as to what you have to hand in to me once I do that. But fieldwork basically means you're going into the fields. If you're studying, if you want to do a cultural study of the bowling alley in your neighborhood, you have to go to the bowling alley, and you have to sit there and you have to listen and take notes and observe what's going on. That's basically what fieldwork amounts to. And if you are, if you select a topic where your ability to do fieldwork is limited, say, somebody who is from Japan, you can definitely focus on Japanese culture, or probably an aspect of Japanese culture would be better. But obviously you're not going to fly over to Japan. Maybe there would be local opportunities for you to be immersed in a Japanese culture. Even going to a Japanese restaurant, I don't know, you'd have to observe maybe the workers there, and I don't mean to stereotype, but I know one restaurant in particular, there's mostly Japanese people that work there. That could be a type of field observation. But if you have to eliminate field work, I'd rather have you stay with the topic that you want to do, because you can certainly write a good ethnography still using the other pieces that you collect. You still would have to do field work of some sort for an assignment, but this is only if you really don't have access to the culture that you're trying to study. The next thing you want to do, and I think I put all this in here, the interviews. You have to do 2 interviews. I would recommend, I don't know what I'd recommend. You can do 2 with the same person, or you could do 2 different people. If you do with the same person, you're basically trying to do a follow-up interview with them, which I do recommend that. I mean, most of the time when we interview people, we forget things, or you look at your notes and you're like, what did I mean by that? So it's helpful to go back to somebody. But again, you can do as many interviews as you want, and you can certainly choose to do 2 different interviews if you'd like. The other type of research is on the internet. I always say go to YouTube, Netflix. You can get instant watch or instant queue or however that is, watch instantly videos, and there's a section on there of documentaries. You can find a lot of documentaries about different cultures and subcultures. Other good sources are National Geographic, Smithsonian, PBS, NPR for audio. So that should be, I would say, relatively easy to find. The artifacts are just simply going to be pieces of material culture from that place. So if you go to the bowling alley, you may end up picking up a scorecard, or maybe you'll take photos of what the table looks like with the ashtray and, you know, the pizza greasy plate sitting there, and you know, there are certain artifacts that you can collect, and obviously there are certain things that you can't take with you. So you can take photos with your phone or a camera, whatever, and still study them. Ideally, it's best to be able to touch things and have them, you know, in front of you while you're taking notes on them. And I'll talk a little bit, I'll give you more detail once we do that assignment. And I just added here, you go to a museum as well, if your topic, you know, fits in with that. Obviously, with a museum, you can't touch, you know, old Egyptian pottery or whatever, but you can see some excellent artifacts and read a lot about them. You'll get lots of information if you go to a museum to look at artifacts. And then, of course, the most traditional type of research is library research. For this assignment, you have to do 2 pieces of research, either scholarly journal articles or books. And I will help you closer to that time as far as where to look and what qualifies as scholarly research. But just be aware that you have to have 2 of those. Okay. As far as ethics go, basically the thing you need to know is be upfront with anybody that you talk to. You're studying people, and that can be a little weird sounding. Some people may not want to participate. Some people may want to be anonymous. Just make sure you ask them, can I use this? Can I record you if you're tape recording them? Can I use your name? They may want you to use a pseudonym. Okay. Just so you know, it's going to be 1,500 words and 4 pages in length. So say you write 1,500 words and your essay is only 3.5 pages, you need to write more because you have to have a 4-page essay. So make sure you follow those guidelines. And then this is the schedule of deadlines. I also have that on your syllabus. I have several short deadlines to try to move along your researching process. But if you'll notice, the interviews are due, you know, the middle of September. That is the part of the project that you can control the least, I would say, because people cancel. You know, maybe you have to reschedule something. Maybe somebody doesn't show up to an interview. Maybe you want to interview somebody else that you didn't think you needed originally. There's a lot of factors that are uncontrollable. So you need to plan ahead for that assignment, because I won't give you leniency unless if you ask me ahead of time for whatever particular reason. All right, so I just wanted to give you those guidelines. Again, email me if you have any questions, or stop in my office if you're available on campus. I did post, I should just shut that down, but I posted on the Moodle page, aside from the topic forum, I also would like you to do a forum about the concept of culture. And this is really to get you thinking about what is culture. It's also to get you thinking about what culture do you belong to, and what are some of the other cultures that are available. So do spend time doing that as well for Sunday night or Monday morning, however you want to put that. Going through this PowerPoint with you, and let's see if I can get the thing to go here. Play. Okay. I'm just going to give you some insight into the sort of work you're going to be doing. and some of the ideas you need to be thinking about, like underlying ideas as you approach ethnography. So, first of all, writing about culture is a study of human behavior, and there's a field of science for that. It's called anthropology. We are not attempting to be anthropologists in this class because anthropologists spend years studying people and cultures, and really there's no, time frame that is like correct or incorrect. But for our class, we're not going to be dedicating as much time as we would need to call ourselves anthropologists. So just don't even think that. But anyways, that's what anthropologists do. It's considered a branch of science, but it's considered a soft branch of science, which just means that it's measurable. That's what science is all about. But it's also imprecise because we're dealing with people, and there's always going to be variables when you're talking about human behavior. When you approach culture and studying culture, you definitely have to consider that there are complex dynamics of family, work, politics, who holds power and who doesn't in a particular culture. There's many things many aspects of a culture that can be complex. And it would be a superficial analysis of a culture not to acknowledge the complexity of what it means to study a culture. And just as an, kind of heads up, other branches of anthropology that you're probably somewhat familiar with, I know for sure archaeology, we all have watched Indiana Jones. That's a form of anthropology. It's going out and finding these artifacts. Linguistics, looking at a culture's language and how that has shaped their people. And then biological anthropology, and that's studying, the biology of people, basically. This is where, evolutionary ideas come in, I would say, as well. And I don't know, biological anthropology is just basically about studying the human body and what that tells us about people. Okay, again, I did ask you to do this topic not the topic forum, but the culture forum. I'm also going to talk to you about culture, so hopefully you won't just steal what I say, but maybe you will. What is culture? I mean, a general definition is it's a pattern of learned behaviors and beliefs of a particular group. So it's a bunch of people who do the same thing, who act the same way. And I put below that it's one of the most powerful expressions of what it means to be human and civilized. I use the word civilized because it requires some sort of organization. It requires some sort of unity. Even cultures that are, quote, uncivilized, like, we would consider this as barbaric or inhuman or whatever, like a neo-Nazi group or Ku Klux Klan or something like that, there is a type of civilization to it because it's a group that has guidelines and they've met together and they've, established certain boundaries and that kind of thing. And it just really, I think culture is fascinating because it tells us about what it's like to live, in order to survive. Like, how do we eat? How do we meet our needs and that kind of thing. But it's also an expression of the things that we really don't need, but that are very meaningful to us, like music and movies and the arts. Those are all expressions of culture. Obviously, as I'm sure most people realize, being born, culture can be divisive, rather, because oftentimes what leads to racism, stereotyping, whatnot, is the fact that a person of a certain culture does not like what is strange or foreign to them. And even if you are a pretty open-minded person, it's still uncomfortable when you're encountering something that's foreign or strange to you. And there's really nothing wrong with being uncomfortable with that. I think that's how we can learn and how we can grow, is by being faced with something other than ourselves. But the problem comes in when people start judging others based on their similarities or differences to themselves. And that's where I have the term here, ethnocentrism. You may have heard of this before in another one of your classes. But it's basically the belief that one's way of life is natural and correct. Like, it is right for one man to marry one woman. That would be a belief. If somebody is ethnocentric, they might say it is not natural for 2 men to marry. It's not natural for 2 women to marry. It's not natural for a man to marry many wives. And I think you can have an opinion. Like, you can disagree with same-sex marriage or polygamy, but it's when you do not accept that other person or that other person's practices that this becomes really, it can become violent and disagreeable. Excuse me. And like I say on this page here, ethnocentric beliefs. You know, if somebody's unwilling to accept a different person's way of life, not necessarily accepting their way of life, but accepting that person at least, you know, allowing them to be who they are. Some of the extreme things that happen is war or genocide. So obviously a lot of wars have been fought over these differences. Genocide, mass killings, I mean the Holocaust, the massacre in Rwanda, and it goes on and on. Those are some extreme, and racism again is a little less extreme, but obviously it's a cancer that can eat up a society if it's left unchecked. Cultural diversity embraces these cultural differences, and I think, you know, more recent generations in America have been kind of trained to be culturally diverse. A lot of it depends on what part of the country you're from. But it's when you can accept these other people